Hey, so I want to talk about malignant optimism or pathological hope because this is really something that I've suffered from. And Sam Vaknin says that the narc actually provokes this in the victim on purpose. And it's a self-delusion that the relationship problems are solvable. For example, that no one is like 100% evil. And we have excessive hope because we don't think that anything is unsolvable. Therefore, we think we can work this relationship out. And there was a quote that I really like from this book called Glimmers of Hope. And it said, abuse survivors have the task of adaptation to an abusive environment. So this is a quote. They find ways to preserve a sense of trust in people who are untrustworthy, safety in a situation that is unsafe, control in a situation that is terrifyingly unpredictable, and power in a situation of helplessness. So I thought that was really interesting. So we've had to find hope in a situation that was hopeless, and this is where we get this pathological hope. It's unrealistic hope because we really didn't have a choice. And then I found this research paper called Someday and If Only Fantasies. It was actually published in 1996, so quite old, but I thought it was really interesting. So they said that blind optimism is an attitude of waiting. It is a side effect of early trauma to the mother-child bond where the mother is emotionally unavailable. And this is just me paraphrasing the paper. It's just my interpretation. I didn't study psychology or anything, so I'm just kind of using my own interpretation of the paper. So the blind optimism is an instinctualized defense against deep-seated rage and the result of parental demand to be cheerful and not complain, which definitely happened to me. I was not allowed to complain or show negative emotion other than crying when provoked to cry. So realistic hope involves successful integration of prior disappointment, whereas unrealistic hope does not. Unrealistic hopefulness is a manic repression of loss and despair. So that really hit me because the hope that the narcissist can love you and will change is a form of not connecting with the loss and despair of not having the connection. So the unrealistic hope is due to not having integrated your trauma. I thought that was really key. So excessive hope is an armor to keep reality at a distance. Pathological hope is the last and unique possible tie with the primary object, which is the mother, I think. Giving up that tie would mean the definite downfall of illusion and admission that it is really truly lost. So the pathological hope is really the only thing tying you to your abuser because you're repressing the reality. So pathological hope is also repetition compulsion, where you continue to generate attempts at solutions that do not actually work. So that really hit me too, because we keep trying to love the narcissist and get them to love us and get them to change and get them to stop being abusive. But our attempts at improving this relationship never work. So pathological hope and optimism include denial and negation of evidence that challenges it. So we're in denial of the fact that the situation is hopeless. 2, suppression of the self that is angry. So there's a really key component of anger suppression in this pathological hope. 3, a temporal displacement from past to future of a state of bliss with a loving mother. So i.e. we hope to achieve it in the future when it should have happened in the past. So yeah, with my family, I'm like, oh, one day we'll work this out, right? And we'll all love each other as we should have. So it's a temporal displacement from how it should have been when you were an infant to the excessive hope that you will achieve that in the future. So I thought that was really interesting too. So the paper also said, we are in a chronic pursuit of this perfect mother-child relationship. And yeah, we just keep having the hope, even though the present situation is bad. And there's a masochistic dimension to it because we remain relentlessly optimistic in a terrible relationship that we believe will somehow become all right. So this stems from an incomplete mourning of the attachment trauma in infancy and arose from unmet needs and suppressed aggression. So then, the paper says in order to heal, you have to rupture the patient's excessive hope and facilitate the resultant mourning. And then you have to reconstruct the early scenarios underlying the need for excessive hope. That actually made me cry when I read that. Realize that there was a situation in your life that required the need for unrealistic hope because it was so bad that all you had was this delusional fantasy that it was somehow going to be okay. And so for me, like, my thoughts on this is that it seems that we really need to tap into the anger and the grief, which is what this excessive hope is suppressing, and tap into the injustice of it all and how helpless you were. So I'm really grateful I found that paper. I've been wondering about the whole malignant optimism thing, and yeah, it really seems that it's a coping strategy, like that quote from the beginning, like, you're trying to find hope in a situation that is hopeless. You're trying to find safety in a situation that's unsafe. Like, the child is just forced to be delusional because to have a grasp of reality was not possible. Like, the child was not capable of seeing the reality that the person that you depend on is not trustworthy. So in order to survive psychologically, you have to force yourself into the delusion that the person is trustworthy. And that's how we bury all the grief and the anger. We just can't face it at that time, and then we develop this excessive hope that everything is okay, and that if it's not okay, it will be okay. So yeah, I'm curious if you struggle with this specifically, because the other thing is defensive pessimism. That's another coping mechanism, which I also kind of had. I don't know, I haven't looked into that, but I think it's where you expect the worst. Like, you're just always expecting bad things to happen. Because I have been, like, a person that worries a lot too. I think we can have, like, both mechanisms. But I think some people tend to be more cynical, whereas I definitely went more the optimistic route in terms of thinking that the relationship was fine and it's, like, gonna get better. And, like, not thinking that this person was a narcissist. So yeah, seems the way out of all coping mechanisms is to, like, integrate the trauma. So yeah, tapping into the anger and the grief, and like they said, rupturing the patient's excessive hope, which I guess kind of already happened because I've gone no contact. That was like the moment of, like, I'm never gonna have a family. Because I have biological relatives, but they're not a family. And the excessive hope was that one day, you know, we would be a family. But you can still have realistic hope of, like, I could meet other people who could love me, you know, but it's rupturing the excessive hope in that situation where the hope is a coping mechanism. So I'm curious what you think about this, and thanks for watching.